State Representative Dodie Horton is standing by. Hey, Miss Dodie, how are you this morning?
Doing great. How are you guys?
Well, there's an old phrase, a cliche, if you will. No good deed goes unpunished. I'll bet
Amen, brother.
That's about how you're feeling this morning. Tell people about the law, the bill that you proposed.
I think it's HB 3043.
In conjunction with Bossier Sheriff
43.
Whittington, and explain the purpose, what it was, and then we can get to how you're the worst person in the world.
Oh, goodness. You're right. You're right, Robert. What a good assessment. Sheriff Whittington, a man that we all know, admire, and trust, called and asked me to author a bill that would prohibit any student from carrying a imitation fake firearm on our school property. And I asked him if this bill was necessary. Did we not have school policy that already covered this? Well, the policy, when you start going to school in Bossier Parish at the age of 5, you can't bring any toy, stuffed animal, or anything to school with you unless you have permission. But it doesn't have any teeth to it for our junior high and high school students who are taking fake imitation guns.
Excuse me, Miss Dodie, what was Mr. Julians' reasoning? What was his thought? What did he tell you about, here's why I think we should do this?
Okay, last year they had an incident where a high school student had pulled a gun on one of our officers. Every Bossier Parish school has an officer or deputy there, and the gun looked so real that, it wasn't any little red tip on the end of it. It had been modified to look real with that purpose. And so when the officer went to respond, the person dropped the gun. Well, the officer did not know that gun was not real until he picked it up. And so Sheriff Whittington had also read about a student who got killed in a neighboring state, and then in several other school districts in our parishes had similar incidents. And so he just wanted to avoid a student being shot for making a terrible decision one day to challenge an officer, and to protect our officers for having to live with the fact that they were forced to shoot a student. And that's the purpose of it. It does not alter or infringe on our Second Amendment's rights, because God knows, everybody that knows me knows I'm a staunch advocate. I'm packing everywhere I go. And the bill is specific. I was asked by a teachers union, are you going to put our 5-year-olds in jail? Well, no. I don't know any 5-year-olds. At least my granddaughter doesn't come, get an imitation firearm with the extent, with the purpose of modifying it to look real so she can intimidate a teacher, a student, or pull it on one of our officers.
Your Facebook page is loaded with comments. This one I'll let you respond to on the air. While I applaud the intent, I don't see a need to clutter the law with an issue that can be handled administratively. Your response?
Oh, that was my first question as well.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know, why do we have to have this law on the book? Well, this law is needed to protect our deputies. This law is needed to also mandate a policy instead of volunteer policy, and this has penalties with it, where policies really don't. And the penalties, of course, are meant to deter a student from going home and making this choice. And, of course, the first one, the key word in the first penalty phase would be may. A student may be fined or may go to jail for 6 months.
Second offense says shall, though, right?
The second is shall, yes, ma'am. And, again, the deputy always has discretion. And but to make that decision when at school, because these are junior high and high school students who are doing this. And in this day and time, when our officers are under so much attack, it's just best to have something to prevent this action from happening.
Ms. Dodie, pardon me, there was a phrase that something you said earlier on that I think is so on the money. And it was when you said another purpose of this law is to codify, if you will, to protect the officer, the on-duty security officer, from a tragic mistake that he'll have to live with. Yes,
sir. Absolutely. I don't think many people really realize what our firemen and policemen have to deal with after they respond to a tragedy. And just think, my father was a Shreveport police officer many moons ago, and the worst thing you could do is to be forced to shoot a student or anyone, more or less a student in a school setting. It's just something you don't want to face because they have to live with it the rest of their life. And if this law prevents one incident from happening, then I'm honored to carry it. I've never seen anything more misunderstood. And look, you guys, I don't have to prove I'm conservative. I mean, I fought the fight, on behalf of my constituents for 5 months in Baton Rouge last year. And I worked with Henry Burns when he authored and carried the Church Protection Act, which was categorized guns in churches and made fun of, and he was ridiculed. But, he stood and the law passed, and now churches have a different measure, a different component to their church security if they so choose to, which includes concealed carry.
Like I said, no good deed goes unpunished.
You said you're going to run this bill by the NRA. Have you gotten a response yet?
No, I have not. I'm waiting to hear back from him. I did have my expert, who is a state trooper. He teaches concealed carry classes. There's not anything he doesn't know. He saw nothing in this bill that could be misconstrued, misused. And, the exemptions are clear. One comment on Facebook said, what if I have my weapon or ammunition in my car? Well, that's an exemption that's in the bill because this does not change that law.
Well, it occurs to me, it seems to me there's nothing in your bill. I mean, the Second Amendment doesn't say the right to bear toy arms shall not be infringed. How could anybody construe that your bill has anything to do with the Second Amendment?
It just, they haven't read it. They haven't read it. And, let me tell you guys, Republicans tend to eat their own. I mean, that's why I don't put a lot of faith in man's praise, I guess you could say. But I want to honor God by the way I serve, because one day they love you, the next day the Republicans hate you for a bill such as this that is meant to protect our kids and deputies alone. And if they read it and took the time to really see it, I think they would understand this has nothing to do with our rights. And look, I don't want to go to Baton Rouge to file frivolous bills to feel good. Mm-hmm. This is strictly for the protection of our students and our teachers, who this weapon was used to intimidate and other students from thinking this is real and made to do things they may not want to, and for our deputies to prevent them from having to shooting a student when this imitation and fake firearm that looks so real that no one could tell the difference. A trained eye in 2 seconds has 2 seconds to make that assumption